Okay, hi everybody. I'm Todd Weller, the Chief Strategy Officer at Bandura Cyber. I want to thank everyone for joining us for today's masterclass, how law firms are using threat intelligence to improve cyber defenses and reduce risk. Really excited about today's webinar that we're doing in collaboration with ILTA. We put together a great panel of experts from the legal services industry, and we're going to cover some key topics today. We're going to talk about some of the risks and challenges that are facing law firms. We're going to look at how law firms are using threat intelligence in their security efforts. Things like what types of threat intelligence is being used and how is it being used. We're also going to look at some of the key challenges that are faced when it comes to threat intelligence and really making it actionable and how folks are overcoming these challenges. Before we dig in, just some quick intros. So again, I'm Todd Weller, the Chief Strategy Officer at Bandura Cyber. I have over 24 years of cyber experience. I spent 17 of those years as a Wall Street research analyst covering the space, and then the last 7 years on the vendor side. Quick hit on Bandura. We have a platform that blocks known bad traffic at scale using large volumes of third-party threat intelligence indicators. Think of us as fusing together network security and threat intelligence. We have over 300 customers, and we've seen significant and growing interest from law firms. We've also have had a great strategic partnership with AIG, where they provide Bandura as a benefit to qualifying cybersecurity insurance customers. And we've got a lot of legal customers from that relationship as well. With that, I'd love to pass it to the panel to introduce themselves. Daniel, let's start with you.
Hi, my name is Dan Lehman. I'm the Director of Technology for Arnold Golden Gregory. We're a law firm based out of Atlanta, Georgia. I have about 25 years experience as well in the industry. Some of it, most of it is in the consulting side of the house, where I did some consulting with law firms in and around the country. And additionally, I came to Arnold Golden Gregory about 3 years ago. We're a transaction, litigation, regulatory, and privacy firm. We service clients and they come from real estate, healthcare, retail, like the financial tech markets, life sciences, so forth and so on. So happy to be here and look forward to having a great webinar. Thanks.
Great. Alex?
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Klumpkin. I'm a Director of Systems and InfoSec for Wilson Allen. In case you're not familiar with Wilson Allen, we are the leading firm in the legal IT space. We do consulting as well as product. If you haven't checked out our products like Performance Tracker or ID8 and some others, you are more than welcome to visit us at wilsonallen.com. We're going to talk about security. We do use Bandura product in-house, and we help our clients with using Bandura. So pretty excited to let even more people in on this wonderful solution.
And Jeff.
Hi, I'm Jeff Sheldon. I'm with the law firm of Evans and Dixon. We're based in St. Louis, Missouri. We have 7 offices in the Midwest. Got my IT start back in 1991 with IBM and just went on to new jobs with more responsibility. Evans and Dixon, we're about 100 lawyers, 200 staff altogether. About half our business is workers' comp insurance defense. We also do patents. We have a collections department, med mal. So we do a smattering of stuff, basically a lot of business services, just we don't do criminal, we don't do family law.
Great. Thank you. And thanks for joining us. Like you said, a great panel. So let's start with some high level stuff. So certainly no shortage of cyber risks facing law firms these days. Ransomware, phishing, third-party risk is a big deal, more remote workers. So would love to get your perspective on, from a risk perspective, what's the biggest cybersecurity risk that has your attention and what are you doing to address it? Jeff, let's start with you.
Okay, so our biggest threat is, like everybody else, is our users. They click where they're not supposed to, and they get, so that's one of our biggest threats. Other thing is we have a lot of, we've been a couple of big 0 days lately. that, luckily Bandura and other things help protect us from that. So it's a real problem.
And Jeff, what are you doing from, to address it from like a user perspective, with the users being your biggest?
Okay, from a user, we try to make security fun, even though it's not. So we base a couple things we do. We use KnowBe4, and we have monthly phishing tests. But to make it fun, everybody who reports the phishing test gets entered in a drawing, and then we give away 4 $25 gift certificates. And if we get a perfect score where no one clicked on the phishing, we give out 10 cards. So that makes it kind of fun. Other things we've done is I call them KGB devices. We have these little boxes. We put if anyone remember the KGB back in the 80s, that's Russia's security force. We put these little boxes with little blinking lights on them. We plug them in at random at the office. And then and there's a little sticker on the bottom that says, if found, call the help desk and they get a prize. We've done the same thing with physical security, where we hire somebody to walk in there. It doesn't belong. They're dressed nicely. And when someone stops them, they show their, letter saying, I'm supposed to be here, and you just want a gift card. So we try to make it fun. Luckily, a lot of the things we don't have to worry about in the first place because we have a lot of security in place, including Bandura and firewalls, and we use Dell SecureWorks. So it's a multi-layered approach, and it just, there's just all kinds of risks out there, and I gotta be right 100% of the time. The hackers just have to be right once.
That's right. Dan, how about you? What's the biggest risk that's got your attention, and what are you doing to address it?
Well, I think we all have somewhat of a similar risk at hand, users, but outside of users, it is the constant battle of resources, right? We have people, we have a very limited team, and we have no dedication we don't have a dedicated security team. So we're not at the liberties. We're all wearing a similar hat. And we have to support, the rest of the infrastructure. So we have to act a little bit smarter. Our tools have to be more intuitive, as opposed to, us digging in a lot. We use KnowBe4 to help with some of this. We do the same things as Jeff was mentioning, with phishing attempts, and we've implemented a security awareness policy that everybody has, reviewed and agreed to. So we enforce that. Some of the other things that we encounter, we've had, just as well as everyone else, the Exchange issues, Excellion, SolarWinds, we've used them all. So we've had to address them, and we've been fortunate enough to not get be not negatively affected in any way with them yet. And we are agile enough now to respond to the 0-day events with patches and exploits in a very scalable fashion. In other words, we can do it fairly quickly now. We've got the process down. So for us, it's all about the repeatable and simple management of those events.
And Dan, how big of an issue is ransomware for you all?
Well, it's a big issue for everyone. So the training part of all of this is we get people that they see their cute, just like everyone else, the cute little puppy dog or the kitten, and they're clicking on the link and going. We've had people that actually put their user credentials into OneDrive authentication, thinking it's legit. The bad actors are getting smarter and smarter, and everything is looking more real. So it's a real threat. It's a daily threat. We're getting thousands of emails a day that are potential ransomware. So we have to stay on top of it. We utilize Mimecast to help us with this. We have I KnowBe4, talked to them a lot. We use Bandura to block and help us protect us from known bad actors and IP addresses, and Dell SecureWorks as well. So it's an ongoing issue. It keeps us up late at night, most of all.
So Alex, over to you. I think you also bring some interesting perspectives because you're not only in charge of kind of security for Wilson Allen as a company, but you're also, advising, customers in the legal services
Yep.
industry.
Yep.
So-
That's the if we want to call it a benefit of wearing multiple hats, that would be it, right? Having perspectives on different cases. But what I wanted, first of all, I would echo both previous panelists in saying, obviously, the user training and the user aspect, the social aspect of this is clearly one of the huge risks and one of the huge things that wakes us up at night. And things like ransomware that usually stem from lack of user training as well. And obviously the risk intel and all this. I think what I want to say is that my biggest concern is how diverse the field of these risks is. Basically, there's not a there's not a simple way. There's no silver bullet here, and this is what I'm seeing with us, as I said, internally, as well as our clients. We were fortunate enough to have not been yet, affected by any pointed attack, but we saw clients that suffered from it, and we know exactly the kind of devastation a potential attack could cause. And there's always that cat and mouse game of trying to get ahead of the bad actors, trying to sort of predict what they're going to do next, which always, just forces them to find an even more sophisticated way to hack through, etc. So this entire world of security that basically exploded between us, in front of us over the past few years is so broad and introduces so many challenges in what we have to be doing on a daily basis that it's just time to start doing and stop overlooking things. Because for many people, the current mindset, believe it or not, is that, you know what, we're good. We've got this in place and we've got that in place, and that is going to carry us forward. Well, guess what? You can't stop. You have to keep moving. And things like threat intelligence do help with this. Although I have to say, and we're probably going to touch on this in our conversation going forward, but there's a lot to be said about how a user of a threat intelligence software or solution rather uses the software and uses the data. And that is, that has a huge impact on the decision making in that field.
Daniel, one of the things you mentioned as far as challenges was resources, and you guys need to be agile. I mean, expand a little bit on that as far as what moves you're making, because you're doing a lot of things despite kind of the resource constraints.
Yeah, so it's all about we look at this, we come to this approach. I mean, we're one team. We have service desk people. We have an application person, a couple of infrastructure people, and we're managing. We have all the same problems as the bigger firms do. We just don't have the resources to mitigate the same things that they are. So what we do, we have to be smarter. We're training. So I make training part of at least the identification of ransomware, the monitoring of services like, from, alerts from CISA or CS, some of the CVEs and things like that. Everybody is part of it. So everybody is looking at it. We're all attentive to what the problem signs are. And we're trying to be proactive. So, and we talk about it a lot at the office. Well, so now it'll be a Zoom, but, it's part of our daily life. That's how we address it. We're making everybody, we had to, innovation has been really key to this. So our solutions, we're VDI. So VDI is helping us in ways that we were with a laptop at every hand, it would be different, and working off the laptop. But we've been pretty fortunate. People are responding well. We're constantly in discussions with our end users about this. The threats and the bad actors. But most of all, our intellect is coming from the community, right? I mean, I think we all know the legal side of the industry is very close knit. There's a lot of communication. We use forums, and we have meetings, and there's monthly get-togethers and discussions and so forth, and things like this always come up. So we work well together as firms, no matter what size. Nobody wants to see anything happen, so we all want to make sure we're taking care of each other. So that is one of the biggest things as well. It's really important. So
Got it. So one of the big topics, right, is third-party risks. So before we kind of drill into threat intelligence more deeply, if we think one of the key drivers here is this third-party risk issue, but law firms, have had increased pressure here, over the last several years, right? Because law firms are huge third parties to all of your clients, and so there's been, I think, a fair amount of increasing pressure. You add on top of that, you had mentioned, these high-profile events recently of SolarWinds, Excellion, and Microsoft. So Jeff, maybe hit on, third-party risk and how big of a deal it is and how that's impacting what you're doing on the cyber front.
Well, people don't really think about it, but I think that's one of our biggest risks because, law firms, we have all these secrets and, mergers and acquisitions, stuff like that. For example, some of our clients are Walmart and Boeing. Now, we do patent work for them. So that's the latest idea that you've got. And we know about before everybody else. And it'd be a lot easier to hack a law firm than it would Boeing. Look at for example, China, they stole the plans, not from Boeing, but from Lockheed Martin for the F-35 fighter jet. So, that's why they have a stealth fighter that looks just like ours. They stole the plans. So, there's some really big risks there that you wouldn't think about, but, you do this for somebody else, and that's the stepping board. It's like the Target. Remember the Target attack? It was the guy that came in to service the air conditioner who plugged in his laptop that had a virus. And that's why that brought Target, down with their whole payment system. So you're the weak, law firms, we're the weak link. And we have all these customers that they can use to go jump from us to our customers. So we got to really be careful, not just for ourselves, but for our customers.
That's probably the biggest thing, right? Because law firms are essentially hubs of information. Law firms have centralized access, not necessarily access, but information about multiple clients. So hacking one law firm lets you into, it makes their process more efficient, right?
That's a great point. And Alex, any other perspectives on third-party risk based on what you're seeing?
We again were fortunate enough. We did not use SolarWinds. We did not get any impact from the zero-day stuff. But we constantly see firms suffering from these attacks. So it's really hard for me to come up with an example right now. But this situation of the firm basically underestimating the danger and thus opening itself up in a manner that lets bad actors just basically walk in and take whatever they want. That is, and usually I really applaud what Dan was saying about the way they try to handle the situation with lack of resources. We are in that boat as well, and that. The intent to bring everyone into this is definitely a valid tactic because the more people are aware, the more people are aware of the risks and of the tactics of the bad actors, the better our level of protection is in general across the board.
Great. Daniel, one of the things you mentioned was, security requirements and questionnaires coming full force. Could you dig into that a little bit?
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So year after year after year, we're seeing more and more increase in the security questionnaires coming from our clients and even vendors. For instance, we had a client last year, well, in 2020. It was about 350 questions. And that questionnaire went, I mean, it was very deep and very broad. And then there was about 60 to 80 hours of phone calls afterwards. It was intense. And at the end of the day, it's difficult because, I mean, again, with a small team, we have to, there's a lot of dedication because we have to keep our clients. And the other side of it is this, is that as we move forward, we have to figure out tools because they're looking for that you have things covered. In other words, we don't have policies for everything. We can't. I mean, we just don't have the bandwidth to do it right now, and we're trying to implement more and more. But they're looking for ransomware policies. They're looking for like data classification policies, procedures. We don't have some of these things yet, but to combat and battle that, what we do have is we use Bandura, we use Gravwell, which is like a SIM product. It's a log aggregator, and we use that to determine, do we have ransomware? Are we, we get that IP range, we search for certain things, we get alerted based on keyword identification. And so we showed them, I showed them those policies, and they suffice for now. But it's becoming more and more like, I mean, you mentioned AIG. So even AIG now has a ransomware. It was a questionnaire that came with it for when we had to renew our cyber policy. So that wasn't there last year. It was there this year. I've already had 4 or 5 different questionnaires this year that are much more in depth than they were in previous years, and they want identification. They want policies and table of contents, things like that they never really requested in the past. So it's becoming very prevalent, and which means we got to step up our security game again into the this with all the same challenges we're just discussing. So we constantly trying to mitigate that, and we have to measure and manage our risk, and that's challenging at times, especially when the landscape changes on a monthly basis, client basis. So yep, but it's all understandable.
No, it's dynamic, and that's, I think, it's a key driver of one of the trends we see here at Bandura, which is more law firms using threat intelligence because of this dynamic threat environment, the need to keep up with the visibility in the threats, to be able to protect yourself. One thing I would like to do here before we kind of get some panelist perspectives is just dig a little deeper into threat intelligence, because it's a broad term. And so, let's provide some context. I always like to look for interesting definitions around defining it. There's some standard ones you'll see all the time. Gartner's a very popular one, but I've kind of focused on some newer definitions. So one is from SANS Institute, where they define it as a set of data collected, assessed, and applied with regard to security threats, bad actors, exploits, malware, vulnerabilities, and indicators of compromise. And then one of my other favorites is Recorded Future, a threat intel partner of ours, and they just really keep it simple. Threat intel is knowledge that allows you to prevent or mitigate cyber attacks. An important point here is, threat intelligence is beyond what's in your existing security controls. There tends to be, I think, a lot of confusion here. And this is kind of security vendor marketing, but every security control you have that detects and blocks threats, they're going to say they do it using threat intelligence. So your next generation firewall, for example, the way they detect and block threats is through threat intelligence, which is factually true, but it's really based on their own proprietary threat intelligence. The same would be true for endpoints. It's based on the activity they're seeing across their customer networks. And there's definitely value to this threat intelligence, but the problem is it's a single vendor's view, and that's just not broad enough. So when we talk about threat intelligence, it's really the threat intel that goes beyond what you're getting in your existing controls. It's threat intelligence you're using from commercial providers. These are specialists that they're in the threat intel business. Companies like Domain Tools or Proofpoint Emerging Threats or Webroot. There's lots of open source threat intelligence that's valuable that's out there. There's government. DHS has some great threat intelligence, and it's industry. So, in legal services, for example, there's the Legal Services Information Sharing and Analysis Organization, and there's those information sharing analysis and ISACs for every industry. So when we talk about more law firms using threat intelligence, and what we're talking about and what we're seeing is the use of this multi-source threat intelligence that's helping them kind of beyond what their existing controls. So now that we've kind of defined threat intelligence and put some context around it, let's hear from the panel around, what types of threat intelligence they're using and how they're using it. Jeff, let's start off with you. Talk about the types of threat intelligence you're using and
Sure.
how you're using it.
Sure. Well, I have a small staff. We're 5 people all together. So we don't really have a lot of time for, security and we don't have any full-time person in charge of it. Mainly we get our things from the CISA, from the Department of Homeland Security and all that stuff. And it's useful, but a lot of it, sometimes stuff goes over your head, and what's kind of nice is with Bandura, I mean, it's kind of a set it and forget it. We got our device back in 2016. And, except for upgrades, here and there that adds this and adds this feature, because you guys have always added some new stuff without, trying to gouge us, adding to the cost. It's really, it does a lot of the threat intelligence for me, so I don't have to do it. And, it's working 24/7. And so, I mean, I try to keep up on things, but you can't keep up on everything.
Daniel, what about from your perspective? What kinds of threat intelligence are you using and how are you using it?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of look at the same stuff. So, we look at CISA. We have different, I have a couple of people in the team. We look at different listservs and, for instance, like CVE databases and stuff like that, to bleeping computer, things along that line where they're being posted to security related websites. We also, so it's interesting, I do like dark web searches. So go out and search domain, things like that. Of course, it's not on the network when I'm doing this, but, it's outside. But, it's interesting because, you look there to see if any of our passwords and stuff like that are out there, or what is out there as it relates to the firm. So the other side of it is like I said, it's Bandura helps us a lot. We get feeds from there. We get updates. They talk about the updates and peers. It's a peer network. So ILTA is a great tool that we monitor out there. We get, feeds from it. And, we all have different forums and stuff that we talk to, and different groups of people for, like CIO, monthly CIO meetings and, with peers from all over the country, and we're getting feedback from them. Again, it's the culture of the business. And, when there is something, news does travel very, very fast, especially, nowadays. It's not like it was 5 years ago. It may take a few days. It's taken a few hours now to get into, that this has happened. I think everybody is probably using the same tool sets, and to a degree, at least websites and forums and feeds. They may be different in context, but it's all the same results.
You mentioned one of your favorite sources was Dr. Chaos. I hadn't heard about that one before.
Yeah, it was a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, maybe even a friend of that friend's. But the moral of the story is it's ethical hacking, and there's stuff out there that it's not really direct driven threats, but it's common sense. It used to be common sense approaches. I haven't looked at it in a few months, but yeah, it's a good website as well. It had links and stuff to different CVE databases, but that's where I met, was able to get context around, in the dark web and being able to pull data out. Because, I mean, if you have data there, it's very difficult, right? I mean, most all of us have something there, and what's the risk behind that? And so, but yeah, that's mostly our avenue, our approach to threat intelligence. I like to make sure that everybody is involved. As I said earlier, it's a team approach. We have one team, one mission, and our clients and our end users are our mission. So we need to protect it.
Great. Alex, talk about kind of two perspectives here. One, Wilson Allen internally, how are you all kind of using threat intelligence? Where are you on your journey? And then second, kind of what you're seeing kind of among kind of the, your legal services customers.
Yeah, Dan mentioned the questionnaires, the wonderful questionnaires that we all get, because obviously, clients send these questionnaires to the law firms, and guess where these questionnaires go next? Goes to vendors, which is exactly on my desk. I actually want to make another observation. You made a very good point, Todd, that you said that threat intelligence is improving probably exponentially with dependence on how many sources you use, sources of data. And I kind of picked up on that because I was thinking actually the other day that if you think about this, the entire security industry is pretty young. It's really just maybe a few years old now. So do we know what threat intelligence actually is going to look like in a few years? I don't think so. To be honest with you, I think we are just touching the surface. We're just scratching the surface of what is it that we could use going forward. And in that respect, Bandura, in my mind, is an absolutely wonderful solution because it does offer a look into multiple sources, and it combines these multiple sources instead of giving you a single point of view, a proprietary single point of view that any other device would give you, thus increasing the amount of data that you can look at. So do we know what threat intelligence is going to look like in a few years? Probably we don't, but we do know that it's all in the data. And that is the value of Bandura. We use, like I said, we use Bandura internally. I recommend using Bandura to clients. I've got clients who use Bandura now, and they're very happy with it. Specifically, well, not specific, for many reasons, right? One is ease of use. The set it and forget it approach that Jeff mentioned always works. And that's wonderful, but I don't think it's going to be enough going forward, to be honest with you, Jeff. I think you're going to need to up your game there. And I think many of our clients are going to see that simply because of that cat and mouse game. The bad actors are always looking to be better than we are. And that amount of the sheer amount of data coming out of Bandura is something that I'm personally fascinated by. I look at that data almost on a daily basis. And this, in my mind, is that road that is going to take us forward, that is going to make us better in terms of protecting ourselves. Looking at that data, analyzing the data, looking at trends, finding those trends, that is what future threat intelligence is going to be based on.
Those are some great points, Alex. And you hit on some really important themes, right? Which is threat intelligence is still early, right? In a lot of respects, but so much of security over the years has been proprietary stuff. Vendor XYZ is going to detect and block your threats, and that's how they get graded, right? Whether it's CrowdStrike versus Symantec on the endpoint, or Palo Alto Networks versus Fortinet on the firewall side, right? They're in the business of protecting you, but there's lots of data that's out there, and the ability to be kind of open, I think, is a big deal. As is the flexibility you mentioned, because look, the best threat intelligence provider today might be very, very different a year from now, 3 years from now. So having kind of that flexibility to use the threat intelligence that's most relevant for you, we think is a very big deal.
Actually, I don't know if there's such thing. The one that is most relevant for you, I think they're all relevant equally, because you just never know where the next attack is coming from. So
Right.
you've got to sort of keep your, eyes on the back of your head as well as in front of your head.
No, it's a great point. And you actually bring up another great point I think about a lot, which is, it is all relevant. And so one of the other challenges is like what we've seen is there's not a lot of overlap between threat intel data sources. So there's an interesting question of like, I think we all would agree that no one's using enough today, right? And so we're helping customers to kind of use more in a scalable and other way. But there's also the question of like, how much is enough? And it's a very good question that I do not have the answer to.
I do.
You do?
It's never enough.
There you go.
It is never enough, and that is why I am a big fan of what is called a layered approach, because I firmly believe that there's no such thing as enough layers, and as long as you keep adding those layers, you can think of yourself as in a relatively safer position. Every layer adds another sort of level of safety.
Got it. So love to get some quick thoughts on benefits you're getting from threat intelligence. So Jeff, love to get your thoughts there.
Sure. Okay. So like I said, we don't have much of an IT staff. And about 5 years ago, we got a brand new Cisco firewall with firepower, sandboxing, all kinds of cool stuff. We had Dell SecureWorks monitoring our traffic. We're using WebSense to stop going to bad web pages. And of course, we had stuff on the endpoints. And I saw Bandura at a trade show, and they had this proof of concept. I'm like, well, hey, it's free. Why not? I'll try it. So, they wanted to put it outside my firewall and, the first thing from the internet. And I'm like, well, I'm sure if I put it outside on the, outside, I'm going to get lots of hits. And you're going to tell me how great it is. I said, tell you what, let's put it behind all my current protection. So that's what we did. And that was kind of eye-opening because it's, it went through the firewall, went through all these different things, and it was still getting through. Now, and the things was I'm getting not attacks per se, but I'm getting probes from China and some other countries. It's like, well, it's not attack, so it's not being blocked by the firewall. It's not on this bad port, but do I need China looking around, shaking all the doors, looking for an unlocked door? So, we had that for about 2 or 3 weeks. We're like, okay, this works. We're going to get it. And then then we put it on the outside because I don't need people shaking I don't need them walking up to my house and shaking all the doors. We'll just keep them, block them at the street. So that's what the Bandura does, just blocks them from even getting in. And then I have all my other protection behind it. I've been real happy with it. Support is awesome. They're not only is it US based support, but in a sense, it's almost backyard support because their office is about, their support guys like about 20 miles away from our office. So it's nice. It's US based. It's, they are more than willing to work with us after hours. Matter of fact, because we did that for an upgrade, or one of my other guys, we upgraded the latest threat protectors, like no problem, no extra cost. And it's US based guys. They know what they're doing. So I was really happy with it. Another thing I just found out after I agreed to this thing is I can monitor. It keeps logs, not forever, but it does keep logs, and it's in an industry format. So I'm in the process of having Dell SecureWorks monitor the logs of my Bandura device, like they monitor everything else, and they could use that that intel to put it all together and say, well, I see somebody did this at Bandura, then they did this, at your firewall, and then they did this on your endpoint. All those 3 things apart doesn't mean anything. We've put all 3 together. That's cause for alarm. So it's like, oh, there's no extra charge for that. We can do it. So I'm really happy with the flexibility of it too. I didn't realize it until recently that it can, with that, since we upgraded, it can do more than I thought.
And Jeff, that brings up a great point, because one of the sources of threat intelligence I didn't mention that's critical is internal threat intelligence that is being generated by all of your security controls. And so by pumping Bandura and your firewall and all those logs and having SecureWorks analyze that, you're going to be producing your own actionable threat intelligence that's going to be very valuable for you. Dan, how about you on the benefit side? Like you mentioned kind of some security scorecard improvements, as you've gone
Yeah.
on your.
Yeah, it's interesting. So when I got here a few years back, I registered for, signed up for a security scorecard. It's monthly they do some security posturing and post scores, and then you can see where where you are doing poorly and what you need to do to increase and improve performance and or improve at least your security posture. So one of the things that was interesting when we were at around a 66, which isn't it isn't great. It's just like high school all over again, trying to explain to everybody why I'm failing. But we're at that. I think the last one came out last week. We're 91. So it's small changes, but it's based off of actual, security events that could or have happened and gaps in your posture as it relates to, firewalls, websites, things that are accessible from the outside and not protected, so forth. And it was kind of eye-opening because we didn't, there were things just weren't aware of because we didn't have hands on. So now we use that as a strong tool and present that to the executive team. I discuss it with my boss all the time. So provides great cadence, which leads into the security patching and, again, threat intelligence. We're trying to stay zero day on Microsoft, which is, fairly difficult nowadays. And especially when you put out patches that are broken and, or they break things. And so it's interesting. But we've implemented tools to help us to manage that cadence where we weren't managing it very well before as a firm. So now we're reporting on these things, sort of, I call them KPIs, but they're unofficial KPIs. And I alluded to the fact earlier that we have to be more agile, more scalable to be successful. So we have to operate as a 30-man team and woman team, man and or woman team. But we're only a team of 4 or 5, and we can't do that if we don't have the right tools. So these tools, Bandura, since we bring all that data into Gravwell, which is that aggregator, and we're able to manage that stuff and to be able to look at a live dashboard of what is happening, what are the threats. To Jeff's point, we had a bunch of stuff coming from China and Russia. They weren't getting in, but it was being blocked by Bandura. So those are all. I think those are the benefits that we have. We're able to see the improvements live, real time, and it's been very helpful.
Alex, your thoughts on benefits?
We still have a lot of work to do, I'm sure. And
thanks, Dan.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts here. First
Yes,
of all, Dan mentioned a couple of things that rang very close here. One is, are we doing enough? No, I don't think we're doing enough, again. And the other thing is that what Bandura lets us do, I'll give you a very simple example. When we first spoke with the Bandura people, I was intrigued, but I really wanted some way to quantify it. And, we didn't have that until we were able to actually put Bandura on our network. We did not put it behind the firewall as Jeff did initially. We put it in front. And that is what I call eye-opening. Because, well, I don't know how many hits your network gets, Jeff, for instance, over the course of, I don't know, a month. I don't know, 100 million probably. I can guarantee you that out of the 100 million hits total your network gets, about 50% of that are going to be blocked by Bandura. They're not going to be blocked, they're going to be denied. So not only this tells you how much of activity there is going on at any given moment that is specifically aimed at, that shaking your door and saying if there is someone behind it, right? But also It is very much targeted. And it's a very concerted effort to find the weak points. And the amount of that, the sheer amount of connections that come from bad actors versus connections that are actually legitimate was mind-blowing to me. It's really not a one-off. You know what I mean? It's not a kid in the basement, running a PowerShell script or Unix script to ping a few hundred IP addresses. No, it's a whole full-blown industry, really, working on trying to find a point of entrance into our infrastructures, yours and mine.
And to your point, it's never ending. So
Nope.
that's great. That's great insight. So look, great insights from our panel. Really validates the trend we're seeing here at Bandura, where more law firms are using threat intelligence. The benefits vary, right? They span, right? It starts with visibility into threats, visibility into what's going on with your environment, and it goes through kind of to protection and the downstream benefits there. There's a few other themes I'd like to hit on that's come out of today. First is you don't have to be a large organization with significant resources to use threat intelligence. This is one of the biggest misperceptions we see with threat intel, and there's really valid reasons for it, right? Threat intel data can be expensive. It can be resource intensive. You heard a lot about resources being a big challenge. And if you look at threat intelligence, historically, it's mostly been adopted by the biggest companies, the ones that have those resources. So I think it's easy for smaller and mid-sized organizations to feel it's just beyond their scope. I think today we've seen great examples of why that's not the case. And there are things law firms of all sizes can be doing to incorporate threat intelligence into their security efforts. And you can do something, right? There's open source stuff, there's industry stuff, and people will be at different points on the journey. The second theme goes back to something we hit on earlier around kind of existing controls and my firewall having threat intelligence. And we hit on one angle earlier around proprietary threat intelligence. And I think Jeff gave a great illustration of, how firewalls don't detect and block everything, right? That just shows that it's foundational and it's one vendor's view, but it's just not enough. But there's another dimension I want to bring up, which a lot of folks don't really know about, which is the other side of this coin, which is that not only do existing security controls not use, third-party threat intelligence by design, they don't play nicely with third-party threat intelligence indicators. So, you could leave here today and go out and aggregate a bunch of threat intelligence data and do that. When you go and try to put it into your existing security control, you're going to face significant challenges. So for example, on the firewall side, a lot of those have significant limitations on the amount of external IPs and domains you can put into a block list. And so that makes it really challenging. So that's another dimension that a lot of folks don't know about. Before I turn it back to the panel for one last word and we take questions. So if you got questions, please use the Q&A function and we'll get right to them. I'm just going to leave you with a few kind of points on how Bandura is helping law firms to use threat intelligence. So, we are providing access to best-in-class threat feeds. We do that through partnerships. So we're providing millions of threat indicators out of the box from all those different sources. We think there's lots of threat intel out there. We want to be able to use kind of as much as possible. We also make it easy for you. We're very much an open platform to integrate threat intel data you want to. That could be a simple custom block list, could be an open source feed, could be an ISAC feed, could be from a third-party system. And we're taking action with it, which is one of the most critical aspects of threat intelligence, right? The ability to use it to protect your network. And we can do it at a scale that no firewall can do, while in the process making your firewall better. And most importantly, one of the things I've been most excited about is we do this for organizations of all different kind of sizes and maturities. We're simple and highly automated. So you don't need to be, hugely, a huge security organization with huge resources and an army to use us. So that just gives you a little perspective on what we're seeing, what we're doing. Alex, turn it over, one last piece of advice quickly for your peers when it comes to threat intelligence, what would it be?
Keep moving. it's you're like a fish. You stop, you're dead, basically. And just keep on adding those layers. Use devices like Bandura that give you a more holistic approach to this and allow you to look into multiple sources at the same time, which is, if you think about this, it is very similar to the job we are as a consulting firm doing for our clients, right? Because we, as a consulting firm, we we are a hub of knowledge. And that concept applies to what Bandura does for the clients as well. Bandura is a hub of multiple indicators, for multiple sources to come together, and we let clients use that data that comes from multiple sources. So that is always a preferred approach in my mind. As many sources of information, there's no such thing as enough information. As many sources as you can utilize, you should be utilizing.
Jeff, one parting shot, piece of advice?
Sure. Well, I'm from Missouri, and they call us the show me state. Basically, a salesman can say anything he wants, nothing against you, Todd, but it's like the proof is in the pudding. So, I would, try out Bandura. Its proof of concept is free. It didn't take very long to, set it up, and it's easy to use. All my guys know how to get in it. It's not like hard, like the Cisco stuff. We can't. It does a great job, but we can't really even work it. We have somebody else outside work that. But Bandura's easy GUI, and I don't want to do that country. Click on it, and it's blocked. So I give it a shot.
Daniel, piece of advice for your peers? You're on mute, Daniel.
Yeah, I think the Red Intelligence empowers teams throughout the firm, our firms, to make better, faster decisions. Sounds like the bionic man, but and amplify their impact. That's the important part, right? We need to express our concerns. And that's from security operations, vulnerability management, risk governance, all the way down the line, or any combination. So it's all, in my opinion, it's best to keep in mind the following. When beginning our journey toward incorporating threat intelligence into our firms, or into our security programs, I think the key is to have the final destination in mind before taking off on the journey. In other words, we got to build that strategy out with the firm in mind, and keep the general counsels and everybody in the solution as part of it, and we'll have much more success in implementing what we need. So
Great stuff. So with that, let's open it up for questions from the audience. And we'll give them a minute or two to come in.
I believe there's one person who has his hand raised. His name is Andy. So Andy, if you want to state your question.
Okay, we got one question here that's come in. With pandemic work from home, we've seen kind of a huge explosion of remote users. How has this impacted you all, and how have you dealt with it from a security perspective? So Jeff, any thoughts there?
We were really lucky in the sense that we've been using some Citrix, and so our users have been working, on a remote server, so to speak, even at the office since 2001. Thanks to ILTA, I got in on a one of these webinars back in early February, and somebody in Seattle was telling me about this, and I'm like, about this virus that's been, causing havoc there, and like, we hadn't heard of it yet, or not much of it yet. But that kind of was an eye opener, and thanks, because law firms are kind of unique. They all talk to each other. At least IT does. There's no competition. We all help each other, and so that kind of I went and talked to management and said, hey, we got to get ready for this. And then we had some tweaks we had to do with mail, just taking care of physical mail and printing checks and stuff like that. But it really went really smoothly for us, because lawyers are used to working 8-10 hours in the day, and then they go home and work at night on the weekend. So it's just the secretaries we had to say, hey, Do you have a computer? No. Okay, well, here's a laptop. And do you have internet? No. Here's how to use your cell phone as a hotspot. And, basically the first 3 days were really bad. And after that, it kind of all smoothed out.
Yeah, we're using Citrix, and Daniel, you mentioned you all use VDI. I think that's a big help in that situation, right? Because you're not exposed to end user devices and the risks that a lot of other folks were exposed to.
Yeah, I mean, it was we were remote out of the gate, so we've been 100% VDI for quite a few years. So the only challenge that we had was that not everybody was allowed to work remote. So we just had to, the same thing as Jeff was mentioning, we had to transition a few people remote with their laptops or whatever they had personally. But yeah, it wasn't too many challenges. We had some difficulty with pre-bills and the attorneys annotating documents. They were actually printing them out at home, and then they would annotate the contract or whatever they were working on, and they take a picture and send it to their legal assistant to update instead of sending the document back with the annotation. So we had to do some teaching and learning from that perspective. But as it relates to security, I mean, we were in the same position we were as in the office for the most part.
Great. Alex, what about your thoughts there?
Yeah, it looks like I'm just going to sort of repeat what Jeff and Dan said before. We also are pretty lucky because we were remote almost. I probably wouldn't be mistaken if I said 90% of our workforce was remote from out of the gate, and didn't really have to change anything in the way we do business. Although I do have to say that we introduced a couple of additional security controls since the pandemic started over the past year. And that kind of helped us because not all users, it was 90%, but it was not everyone. And we were fortunate enough not to be targeted thus far. But this situation with remote users all over the country, and actually all over the world, we are international, it just constantly is on my mind as something that we have to be very mindful of. And we have to constantly keep an eye on how we're protecting our users, how we're protecting ourselves based on the fact that our users are all over the world. We actually have a considerable amount of people who, again, outside of pandemic, used to travel a lot as well. So it's not always that you can just block a country because people go to this country to do business. And, there's considerations as well, sort of more granular stuff, not on a wholesale level.
Great. Well, with that, we're at the bottom, at the bottom of the hour, or top of the hour, I should say. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank Alex, Jeff, and Daniel for being on the panel and providing such valuable perspectives. And if you're interested in learning more about Bandura, check out our website, banduracyber.com. A lot of great stuff up there in the resources section, some white papers, things like that. And there's also contact information. You can reach out if you have additional questions or want some more information. So with that, thank you everybody for joining us, and have a great day.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.